What up guys, it's Ram All for Life here today and I'm back with another video. Now today's video I want to do something special. I want to make a series on my channel where I talk about certain powers or abilities that are throughout all of fiction, and I want to go more in depth on how they work, the different types of them and the stages and levels, and also how to beat them. Or best way to counteract those abilities and find a way to beat them in a fight. This videos I got it kind of from Rob from Comics Explained, where he did a series on how to beat certain characters from different fictional universes as a regular human, like how to kill them or defeat them. Personally, I liked that series, but the problem with that was I felt like one, going against specific characters, that does sound great, but sometimes it can be a little too OP and there's too many abilities, and I felt like it would be better just to focus on one specific abilities instead of certain characters. Also, he went on the premise of you just being a regular human using tech or money to beat them. I feel like even with the best tech, majority of the characters or like abilities to beat will be literally impossible and there will be no way to beat it. So for me, I'm going to be doing it in a sense where you would have powers. What powers would you need to beat these selective powers? What would be the best ability or best method to handle these abilities, and how do they work, and what different levels of danger? Now in this one I'm going to be talking about how to beat somebody who can read your mind in a fight. How could you handle somebody like that? In a battle scenario, what power would you need to be able to handle somebody that can read minds? And I'm not going to get into all those other psychic abilities. I'm going to do separate videos on each different one. And all these other psychic abilities, there's a whole umbrella term for different psychic abilities. You have the ability to pick things up with your mind. You have the ability to read minds. You have the ability to put illusions into people's heads. You can psychically attack them. You can have other forms of like kinesis, where you can control water, earth, electricity, all these other stuff. There's many things, but I want to focus specifically on mind reading. How do you beat a person with mind reading? What types of different abilities are there for mind reading? Now, unlike other powers, like you would have, let's say for teleportation, because there's many different forms of teleportation and different levels that you can have. When it comes to reading minds, there really isn't that many other things besides just one level, which is mind reading. It's not like, oh, you can read partially these minds or that whatever. So yeah. What are the different mechanisms of mind reading? Well, from what we've seen from fiction, most mind readers, all they have to do is basically focus on a certain person's head, or sometimes naturally they can do it and they can read their thoughts. And this can be very dangerous in a fight. If a character is trying to fight someone who can read their mind, then one, they will be able to anticipate all their movements, so they'll be able to previously know what they're going to do. But also if they're making make a big plan, they'll know what they're doing, and also kind of psych them out naturally, because they'll know what they're thinking, and that can be really dangerous. It's hard to beat a character who can read somebody's mind. So there isn't really any other level besides just reading the mind, though there is different levels of control, because we have some characters who have literally no control of their mind reading powers, where if they're in a space with too many people, the problem is that they can kind of have a sensory overload and they can't handle it, and that usually happens to more beginner level people who have mind reading abilities. The characters that don't have those abilities have dealt with their psychic abilities for a while and have found a way to control it to the point where they can selectively target a person's mind, and those are usually the most dangerous mind readers in a fight, because it's hard to beat them. Now there are a couple of ways to beat somebody with the ability to read minds. And there's a couple things you need to take into consideration. One is the range of the mind reading abilities. How far can they have psychic, I guess they call it kind of like a psychic barrier, where they draw like a giant bubble, that where if you get close to that bubble or get in the bubble zone, they can read that person's mind. And depending on which character you might have, they might have different levels of distance that they can reach somebody psychically. So you might have a character that can read minds from a couple of feet away or miles away, and depending on the range, it becomes more dangerous. If it's smaller, the smaller it is, the easier it is to beat them, because you can just stay out of their mind reading range. They can read your minds and you can attack them. But even if a character has long mind reading range, there are still specific ways to beat them. It's far easier to beat them if they have closer. Now, some people might say, well, if they have closer, then how are you going to beat them? Well, you can kill them from a distance. Like, let's say you have a sniper on a roof. If you are out of their range, you can shoot and kill them. Or if you have a character that can fire energy attacks, they can go on a far distance away and blast them away. So it really depends on their range and what abilities they have. If they're using techs like weapons, they can use guns that can go from very far range. But if their psychic abilities extend past, the range of any firing arm, you could probably use missiles or other things. And even if it's crazier than that, you can just have characters who can fire energy attacks from, great distance. But there's also another way to beat somebody with psychic abilities to read people's mind. And that is, it's been shown through countless, fictions, where it's the ability to fight without thinking. So if you can fight an opponent without thinking about your next move or what you're going to do, you can beat them. And we've seen this countless times where characters have had the ability to read minds and they have lost to people who have just emptied their mind and let their bodies do the work. So that's also another way to beat them, is if they're reading your mind, then just don't think and beat them up. But it does become a little bit of a problem if you're making a strategy. Like let's say you're against like an evil organization and they have a person who can read minds. If they read your mind or your crew's mind, then they will know your plan to stop them. So in a single hand-to-hand fight, it's easier because you just have to, not think and you can fight. But if you're trying to beat an evil regime that has a person with a psychic ability in it, then any plans you made, they will know it. So you can't change up plans either because they'll know that too. So that's when it becomes very difficult. But in a combat scenario, just don't think. That's the best way to do it. Another way to do it is have multiple people's minds. Like I said, they will need a selective mind. If there's multiple attackers attacking the psychic, the guy who can read minds, then he will be having multiple assailants and need to either widen his range so he gets all their minds at once, or selectively target back and forth between each fighter, which is more difficult. But if he leaves a wide range, now he has multiple thoughts in his head which will confuse them and you can beat them. So that's another way to do it. I think another way to stop somebody with mind reading abilities, there's a couple ways. One is to have resistance to mind reading, which would just be resistance to psychic abilities in general. Two will be crazy, because some characters, even if they have great psychic abilities, they cannot read the minds of somebody who's crazy, or invade the mind of somebody who's crazy for some reason. Or you could think of random stuff while you're doing something, so you can also trick them in a fight. And those are pretty much the only ways you could kind of trip them or catch them up. But yeah, mind reading is quite impressive and it's quite a powerful ability to have, but there are easy ways to get around it in a fight. Like I said, depending on the range. If the range is smaller, you can just use guns or even missiles and stuff, certain things that attack. Or you can even send a drone in there to shoot at the person, because the drone, they can't read the mind, so you can be very far away. Or if their psychic abilities can reach out very far distance, then you can simply have, let's say you have an energy attack abilities where you can stand from the distance. Like Goku, he can fire a Kamehameha from very, very far away to hit his opponent. So even if they can read his mind, he can get far away. So if you have the ability to fire energy attacks, you can attack them from a distance. And then also you could, if you are in a fight with them, just don't think of anything, misdirect them with false thoughts, have multiple assailants that are thinking at once that can trip them, and they can't handle that. Have some mind reading resilience, or psychic ability resistance or whatever. Or just be crazy like the Joker, where your mind is too crazy for them to read and understand what your plans are. So those are the only ways to really beat somebody with mind reading abilities. But if I am to be honest, it's a lot easier to beat somebody with mind reading abilities than most of the other psychic abilities, because some of them can get very, very powerful, especially like illusion casting. I think that would be considered, for me, one of the most powerful psychic ability. The ability to invade somebody's mind and control them, or that way, that can be the most dangerous. But yeah, that's it for this video. I will be making multiple ones on different stuff like speed, strength, invulnerability, flight, all these other different powers. Every of you can think of any superpower that there is out there that exists. I will try to make a video on that and try to find out scenarios on how to beat them and the limitations of them and the different levels of them. This one is just my first one, so it's a little bit of beta testing. It's not going to be too great, but my next videos I'm going to have more more like outlandish powers that are going to be harder, and it's going to take more brain power to beat. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video format and these ideas, and I hope you guys especially enjoyed this video. So yeah, stay tuned for next time.